Thank you for coming. I'm excited that you're here because it's rare. I don't think actually, maybe once in the 8 years we've been doing this, we've had a senior leader of a major marketing organization. And I think it's perhaps apt that my first question to you is, like, what do you do?
My kids have been asking me that for years in terms of what do I do. Well, actually, I run one of the world's largest global marketing communications company, IPG as it's known. Started in 1961 as a company called McCann Erickson, which I'm sure many of you heard of, which is probably the largest global advertising company in the world.
Thanks.
And it embarked on creating this notion of a holding company and doing a series of roll-ups of marketing service companies, from advertising to experiential marketing to public relations. So we're in 130 countries. We've got 42,000 employees. We have over 4,000 clients. In the top 100 advertisers in the world, we represent most of them in one form or another. Our brands, in addition to McCann Erickson, are Draft FCB, Lowe, Weber Shandwick in terms of PR, on the media side, and Initiative. And the clients we represent are Microsoft, L'Oreal, Nestle, Unilever, and we've created some of the great iconic brands in the world, like Because You're Worth It. The L'Oreal is a McCann Erickson slogan brand, if you will, naming, and Priceless from MasterCard. So, frankly, this is a great conference for us. I'm surprised it's taken 8 years for us to get here, because all the things that you're talking about is we make it, put it all together, and all this confusion in terms of the fragmented media is exactly what we do. We work with our clients on an agnostic basis and help them build brands and sell products.
So I want to relate your business to the business of the Valley, the iconic companies that have emerged, exploded onto the scene in the past, say, decade or so. Google, Facebook, Twitter, Foursquare, companies like this, Pandora. But in particular, these platform companies like Google and Facebook and Twitter seem to have an approach to marketing and to advertising, which is, yeah, we'll get to that. That'll come later. I remember John Doerr at a conference that I ran in 1999, defending his investment of Google. And he was asked by John Heilemann, actually, how are you going to make money? And he said, we have, I think at the time it was something like 50 million people or 20 million people. We'll figure that out. What ultimately happens with all those companies that I just named is that the way they figure it out is they end up calling you.
Right.
Do you kind of wish maybe they would start working on figuring it out a little earlier? Are you satisfied with the way we're making things, such that the integration with your clients is seamless and works great?
Well, it's interesting. If you start with the notion that the consumer expects everything on the internet to be free, I can understand where the business model starts out basically without an understanding of monetization. I mean, ultimately the goal is to monetize it, but frankly, for example, when we made that early investment in Facebook, it wasn't clear where it was all going, and we were all learning together.
Well, you should describe. So you made an early investment in Facebook.
We made an early investment in Facebook, fortunately, and you may have seen recently we sold half of our interest, frankly, for $135 million, with a $133 million gain on half of it. So that wasn't bad.
So for $1 million, you made $133 million.
Basically, yeah. So
what are you doing in the market?
Well, the point is, and this is that was a great story, because we wanted to learn something about this new phenomenon, and at the time it was relatively new, and we wanted to experiment, and we're doing the same thing now with other companies at our emerging media lab. So I think the point is that if we start out early working with these companies, we can work on how it's monetized early on, so eventually it becomes a real force in the marketplace a lot earlier, because we can experiment and work with these companies to see how it works in the marketplace. And rather than waiting later on, if we start out early, which is the whole concept of our Emerging Media Lab, and that is to experiment, to see it real time with brands, to see how the consumer is going to relate to that particular product. And frankly, that's what this is all about in terms of communicating across all the different outlets and platforms that are there.
Now, each one of, back in the day, I guess you might call it in the Mad Men era.
Yeah.
You're appropriately dressed for such,
Thank
such
you.
an era.
Am I the only one wearing a tie at this conference?
We were surprised to see Bill Gross wearing a tie when he introduced his company earlier today.
Okay.
But he was talking about monetization, and that may well be why he was wearing a tie.
Right.
Each of these platforms comes with a new approach to marketing, right? If it's on Twitter, it needs to be endemic to how Twitter works, promoted tweets, promoted this, promoted that. If it's on Google, you've got to figure out AdWords and AdSense. If it's on Facebook, it's engagement ads. It's not one sort of megalithic 30-second spot that you can leverage, right? You've got to learn all. Is that fractional, sort of, the way that that's sort of fracturing, is that making your job less efficient and hurting your margins?
Well, forget about margins for the second. Just think in terms of where this whole fragmented media market has evolved to. If you start with the idea, in the old days, it was a big idea. You had the big idea, you put it on television, you shot a commercial, you reached 80% of the market on 5 channels in network TV, and that was the end of the discussion. Now, with all the different outlets, if you think of the integrated offering where we can work early on and you can capture Twitter, Facebook, all the different mediums that are out there, and you work across platform and on a transmedia basis, and you create an integrated offering that works across all these different outlets, that's ultimately where we want to get to. And the whole notion of our business has evolved into the relationship between the consumer and the brand, and how do you make that relationship more effective? And by storytelling and crossing all the different media outlets, you develop a relationship with the consumer that goes well beyond just the point-of-sale relationship.
So that means your business is sort of shifting into being more of a relationship business and less of a big idea story business. Is that fair to say?
Well, ultimately, you need the big idea to communicate with the consumer. But our business is to help our clients understand where they should put their dollars. Where is it most effective? And frankly, this digital environment really works to our sweet spot because it lends itself to accountability. In the old days in advertising, you didn't know exactly how this particular campaign was going to work, and there was various methods of testing it. But now, because of the real data and the input that we obtain, we actually know return on investment for the dollars spent. And that's where the value added of what we can do comes out.
Are you satisfied with that? Because I think what's easy to measure in the online space is, when someone clicks, or if it's a direct response kind of proposition, when someone clicks and then converts or buys or gives a certain amount of whatever the outcome is you're looking for. But what about brand? What about building and creating the sensibility that, well, that product is worth more to me than that product because I share that brand's values, or I want that brand to be part of my life?
That's why this whole social networking and the whole internet relationship is so critical, because that's how you establish that relationship.
But how do you measure that?
Well, you measure it by eyeballs. You measure it by participation. How many times how often are they staying on that particular site? What are they doing on their site? By the way, who's on that site? You can target. We have a data-rich media buying, if you will, called Cadreon, where we can focus on exactly who you want to get to their demographics, what are their spending habits and so on. So you can really develop a real relationship with a consumer that is ongoing. It's not just a point of sale and that's the end of the discussion. So I think all this stuff that I'm hearing at this conference just lends itself to what we do. And that is we work with our clients on an agnostic basis. That's the other part of this. We're agnostic in terms of where our clients spend their dollars. And our advice is exactly that, in terms of where do you get the best bang for the buck? Is it in TV? Is it on the internet? Is it a combination of the two? Where on the internet is it better spent? And that's the value add that we provide. So all of this is music to my ears because that's how we develop relationships with our clients. And that's how our clients develop relationships with the consumers. So it's logical.
So you mentioned Cadreon, which is, in the parlance of the ad tech community, a DSP, a demand-side platform, which is to say it collects the demand from the client in terms of buying advertising. And on this platform, it goes and looks at a ton of inventory and acquires that inventory in a real-time bidded auction. It's very technology-driven. Are advertising agencies becoming technology companies?
No, I would say no. What we are is we interpret and we use technology to measure behavior. That's different than being a technology company. But obviously technology is hand in glove with what we do because it enables us to be smarter in terms of helping our clients spend their dollars. So, yeah, are we well versed in technology? Absolutely. Do we understand all the different outlets and what effect it has? Absolutely. But and sometimes we're actually creating IP. We're creating some technology in the process, but we're not exactly a technology company. We use technology.
One of the things, as you, in your preamble, you said that you have built the company over the years. IPG was built by acquiring a lot of agencies, and you acquire for a lot of different reasons, maybe in a geography where you want to build up your Brazilian presence and you buy a smaller agency in Brazil or so on. Are you looking at companies in the internet space that way as potential acquisitions?
Yeah, of course. We have just these past couple of months. I think we announced 11 transactions. Spring Creek, for example, on our media side, which is a search capability. So we are always looking at adding to our capabilities, either geographically, as you pointed out. Two of our recent transactions were in Australia, where we wanted to beef up our presence in space, technical space, whether it be digital and search. In Brazil, we did Kubo, which is a digital media company in Brazil. So it's to add to our capabilities. On the digital side, we have three of the best digital agencies in the world. One of them, many of you are familiar with, is RGA, which we expanded globally. Recently, a couple of years ago, we bought a digital agency in Brooklyn, New York called Huge, and now we've expanded it globally. And MRM, which is part of the World Group, is a global digital provider. What's interesting is our digital capabilities are throughout all of our companies. So our media companies are obviously well-versed in digital, our digital specialty agencies, but all of our traditional agencies have become digital agencies. So it permeates everything we do.
I want to ask you, because your company spans so many different brands and is global, one of the things that's come up here a lot over the last couple of days is skittishness around the global economy and a sense that, well, I don't know if it's a sense, things just don't feel right. How are your major clients feeling right now? Do they have a cold, or do they have the flu? Are they spending? Are they pulling back? Is there a trend that you're seeing?
Well, we are in a quiet period because
I'm not asking about your future revenues,
okay,
Mr. Pincus.
Well, I'll just tell you. I remember 2008. Let me put it this way: in 2008, our business stopped. Literally, it stopped cold. We're not seeing that now. Are our clients nervous? Certainly in Europe, there's a lot of skittishness, and our clients are cautious in terms of how they spend. But the benefit of being a global company, we still see active markets and growth in India, in Latin America, notably Brazil, in all the BRIC markets, in China. I just came back from there. I was there last week. So the benefit of being a global company is that if one particular market is under some type of pressure, we have other markets that are...
Are there markets that you're seeing that are really taking off very, very quickly?
Oh, there's no question that the markets in India, China, and Brazil are they have double-digit growth. Just look at our second quarter results. And actually, we haven't seen a major pullback, but there is concern out there, and we can talk ourselves into recession. But right now, I think it's just a lot of cautiousness and waiting to see what's going to happen.
Well, I'm going to stop you. I don't want to talk us into a recession. Stop it right there. If there are any questions, we have a couple of minutes. Come up to the mics, but I wanted to sort of do a quick word association game here with brands that you are familiar with on the technology side, and just get your just instant analysis of those brands, if you could. Starting with Google.
I think they're innovative and scale.
Do you worry that Google might be carving out part of your business with the ad service stack that they're creating?
I think they have to work with us. This whole question of whether you work directly with our clients and so on, I think, again, it's so confusing that clients ultimately have to turn to someone who is agnostic about it, and that's the value we serve. So I view Google as an opportunity.
Steve Ballmer's coming up next,
yes.
So Microsoft.
A great partner. One, they're a client. Two, we obviously use their services. So I think that's a perfect situation for us.
Now, here's an interesting one. Amazon, which actually announced that they will be starting to do an ad product.
I would call them aggressive.
Excellent.
And I think eventually they will have to use our services too.
And also a very innovative marketer, Apple.
Obviously when you hear Apple, you think of Steve Jobs and what a great loss. But they have a significant innovation in terms of everything that we do. It was interesting in China. They asked me a question of, do you people realize, it seems we've recognized what a great loss it was greater than you have, which was an amazing response from China. And I said, I don't think so. But they kind of taken it a little more seriously. And I said, that's just not true.
Interesting. How about Twitter?
I think they're a force. I think that's part of what we do. I think Twitter is a piece of the puzzle. And I don't think there's any question that part of that integrated offering that we develop for our clients, utilization of Twitter is part of that.
Yeah. Well, I would like to keep going, but I need to stay because I know Steve's got somewhere to go. So,
okay.
Michael, thank you very much for coming to Web 2. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.